This video is on starting housekeeping with the mixed data. The mixed data survey data from UNICEF on the well-being of children and women, originally from SPSS, was saved as an R file, and this is now opened. There is a big difference between the combined size and the saved data, 242 to 43 MBs. We looked earlier at the column metadata. Here it is again. It includes a label for each variable. With data from SPSS, the column names are often quite short, as here. And there is also a description of the contents of each variable. Here they are. As you can see, this is also fine in R, but seems rarely to be used. Instead, the names in many R files are often very long. We like the idea as here of using short names plus the variable labels. One other SPSS feature is the presence of value labels for some of the variables. They are similar but not quite the same as factor variables in R. Fortunately, with R, you can have both factors and the value labels if you wish. As an example, right-click on the district's variable HH7 and make it into a factor. Now, the level/labels dialog shows there were 36 districts in this survey. Before making more factors, we look quickly at the first variables in the household file. Use prepare, check data, one variable summarize, and choose the first variables down to H7. The result for HH1, which is the cluster number, shows there were perhaps 2,692 clusters in the survey with up to 20 households per cluster. The enumerator and the supervisor codes are in HH3 and HH4. These are categorical variables, so we now make them into factors to examine them more closely. Before proceeding, we note an R-Instat curiosity. We have now added more value labels to the data frame. This just confirms that we really like using factors in R-Instat, and we also like value labels too. Now, choose HH1, then the level/labels dialog. This confirms there were 2,692 clusters in the survey with 20 households in each cluster. Selecting HH3, we see there were 348 enumerators for the survey. They typically covered about 200 households each, though some handled much less. Selecting HH4, we see there were 45 supervisors, most of whom supervised the collection in just over 1,000 households. Close the column metadata window. Now, use the down arrow on the toolbar image to show the metadata for each data frame instead. This is unlike SPSS, where we would analyze each data frame in turn. Some users may prefer to process the data frames one at a time because it can be confusing to have too many sheets together. You may choose to do this if you wish. If you continue as we do here, then you can simplify the look of the data by hiding the sheets or data frames that are not used for now. We illustrate with the Prepare Data Book Hide/Show data frames. Hide all except the household data. The hidden information is shown in the metadata. where most of the data frames are now true, that is, hidden. We prefer, for now, to have them all visible. Right-click at the bottom tab and choose Unhide. This returns to the dialog and we clear the receiver. Now, the data frames are all visible again. It is convenient to include the information about each data frame within our R file. The downloaded mix files include a README. This is a simple text file that can be opened in Notepad. The data frame metadata can include a label, so we add the information from the README. Right-click on any data frame and choose Rename. Now, copy the relevant label and paste it as the data frame label. You can press OK and then open this dialog again, but it is simpler to use the little down arrow on the OK button to keep the dialog open. Continue with the other 7 data frames. Next, we add key information for each data frame. After adding, we explain why this step is useful. Start with the household data frame called HH. Go to Prepare, Keys and Links, Add Keys. From the number of clusters in HH1 and the 20 households per cluster in HH2, there should be the key variables. That is, a row should be uniquely identified by the value of the pair HH1, HH2. We first confirm this. However, it will be useful to add the district variable as well. So, clear the receiver and now use HH7 together with HH1 and HH2 again. Reconfirm that they are unique and press OK. The key information is shown in the metadata. Most of the other data frames are at the person level, and so we also need the line number LN within the household as a key. Four variables plus the district are needed for the birth history of married women BH and the maternal mortality module administered to women MM. The variables cannot define a key for these 2 data frames without the 4th variable. We confirm this. Therefore, we add a 4th variable to each data frame. There are 2 reasons it is useful to add the key columns. The first is as a check on the data. If, for example, there were duplicate households at the household level, then something will be wrong. And in the check unique, we will get that the variables cannot define a key. So, we would have to check the data for the duplicates. The second is to facilitate a simple reporting system in R-Instat. As you proceed with the analysis, you may wish to include comments on the odd data points or variables. For illustration, return to the household data HH and summarize the variables on size, namely HH48 to HH52. This showed the minimum household size was 0 and the largest had 45 people. From HH52, which is the number of children aged 5 to 17, there was also a household with 23 children between age 5 and 17. We decide to check on this largest household in more detail. Right-click and define a filter to look at the large households. Choose HH48 greater than 40, add the condition, and call the filter House 40. Right-click and choose Add Comment. The comment is added, then press OK. This has made a new data frame called .comments as shown. The advantage of the key is that the district and the cluster number of the household are shown for future reference. Any further comments from any data frame simply add more rows to the .comment data frame. Now, return to the household data frame, right-click again and remove the filter. Finally, in this introduction, we look in more detail at some of the variables in the household file. There are 329 variables, so we also introduce the select facility in R-Instat to choose a subset. From the metadata, we see that the variables after the household size describe their characteristics. The names of these variables all start with HC, which seems appropriate. Right-click and choose Select Columns. Define a new selection and choose the Starts With option, using HC and ignoring the case. Call it HC_VARS. Then press Return and OK to implement. This is what SPSS calls a variable set. We see the variable names are now colored red to indicate a selection has been made. We now use a dialog that is designed to summarize variables that may have value labels. Use prepare, factor, view/delete labels. Only the selected variables are now available, so choose them all and press OK. This provides an initial summary of the data, showing the value labels when they exist. Almost finished with our initial examination and housekeeping. We haven't changed any data, but we have added to the metadata and also added the .comments data frame. This is all part of the R-Instat databook. So, use File, Save As, and save the updated information. Then that's it so far. You have seen a bit of the data and some of the tools in R-Instat, including the filters and selects that are often useful in analysis.